So the biggest pitfalls and challenges, I think, are when it comes to sustainable happiness. I think people have a perception of what that means. So I think one of the pitfalls is that when leaders don't define it. What do you mean by happiness? Is it more of those, perks or benefits, or is it more about purpose or values? Where my line of work comes from is that the scientific basis of happiness comes from having higher purpose, having control, having progress, having connectedness. So I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls. And then I think the second one is that we think it's like a program that we just launch and done for the day or the year, but it's not. It's a journey. It's like a proverbial happiness journey to we need to commit to as leaders. Otherwise, employees will perceive it as just another, that was like another failed attempt at making us happy. So I think those two things, and now with COVID, since COVID and where we are with the work world, I think the third thing now is just like we need to be more real with what we're doing, more transparent, more empathetic, knowing that happiness might be something people still can't talk about yet. So just being sensitive to that as well. We, as a general society, are just getting on that cusp of people really realizing that it needs to be an intentional thing that needs to be done, and understanding it's cliche, right? We've heard in the past, like, you won't know your highs until you know your lows, but now it's like, oh wait, that actually is true. And so the short answer is, like, it's just, I feel like this next generation is, including ourselves, I'm not talking about young versus old, people that are living now are now realizing it is a step towards freedom, really. It's not even about happiness, it's freedom within ourselves. So in that sense, it's very encouraging, but there is a long way to get there, especially for some people. How I would see it, it's less about like the flip of a switch, of like, oh, I'm fully self-aware, I've got my values and I have my higher purpose, so I should be happy. So it's not in that way. I think it's kind of like thinking it as tools in a toolbox of, if these are the different sets of tools that I can have, like having a purpose, like living by my values, like understanding my highs and lows, like embracing or being curious about my weaknesses or perceived weaknesses, then it's just kind of like, then you have this toolbox for the rest of your life. And happiness can come if you are able to access those tools along the way. But sometimes we get into places where we forget about the tools, or the toolbox gets lost or something. So yeah, I guess I see it less of a quick fix. It's more like, can I do something about that within myself for that happiness that I want? Because HR is so broad, there's a lot of things a lot of hats we got to wear, a lot of things that we need to communicate. I think it's important to be able to create an overarching umbrella message of what these benefits could mean, or what well-being is, because it's like, then it just becomes loose words. But if we define them in this umbrella, and that's like, so my way of doing that is not just happiness anymore, it's that growth. I'm all about the greenhouse model. No one can say I don't want to be happy, but everyone can say I want to grow. So that is the growth greenhouse model, is the umbrella to put all these different benefits and packages and wellness things within. So then there's a bigger narrative to their story of why they would need any of this stuff. And then it becomes their narrative. So that's what I would suggest. Like, there's just so many options. How do we simplify it and make it meaningful to them?